All right. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. I am so excited. I'm so tickled. I'm so honored. We have our very first repeat guest. Woo!
Woohoo!
Liz Lee is in the house, folks.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. And this conversation is kind of a continuation of sorts.
Yes.
We were kind of laughing like this is like a part two of a part one that was not planned to be a part one and part two, but here we are.
Yeah.
So if you want to listen back, it can be after this episode, after you listen to this one. Episode number 17, Liz was one of my very first guests on the podcast. And we really dove deep into her experience with plant medicine. She went on this amazing retreat. And I don't want to spoil the beans on that whole episode because it's so freaking good. I was just telling her, I still have people reaching out to me. That was from the spring of this year. So, I mean, people are still reaching out to me and like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. It's opened up my mind, opened up opportunities. I've had all these questions and she's giving me answers. Like, it's so good. So yeah. So that's kind of like our part one. And, so I guess I'll intro you for people who don't know who Liz is, besides being a friend. I first met Liz a few years ago, and she's helped me with some amazing website design. She's helped with maintaining my website and kind of bringing me back from where I was doing just brick and mortar hands-on healing to being this online person. And she's helped with evolve my brand and help me to really explore coming out of my spiritual closet in different ways. And so we kind of do that for each other now, don't we?
We do. We check back in with each other from time to time as we come further and further out of the woo-woo closet.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys don't know this about me, but I typically only will work with people who are very much in the same vibration as me and who kind of get what I'm putting down. There's another episode with my friend Sage Polaris. She was somebody I hired for copywriting. And again, like you speak the same language. So it's a little bit easier to work with people. I don't have to explain to them like what certain things are. So Liz has always been on the spectrum. And she's always been really open, and I've always had these great fluid conversations with her. We became friends, and we've done sessions together. And so Liz has come a long way in her own right, from doing sort of just website design to really evolving herself, evolving her brand, evolving her consciousness in ways that even I haven't gone to. So, so let's bring you in. So I guess let's just kind of start where the conversation was like maybe left off, and let's just dive right in, Liz.
Okay. Well, when we recorded our last episode together, and I'm so pleased to be the first person for a repeat, by the way.
Yes!
That just, tickled pink. That was back in March. I had just returned from Costa Rica. I'd been on a 7-day retreat. I had sat for 2 consecutive nights of ayahuasca ceremony. That was my first experience with ayahuasca. In episode 17, I go into great detail about how I met ayahuasca and at the same time met myself, met my own resistance, met my need for control over my experience. And that was a game changer. Ayahuasca works with you. Any type of plant medicine, really, you sit with it, but it also remains with you after you. So ayahuasca continued to work in my life, even though I only sat with her, the grandmother as she's called, for 2 nights. I was able to examine in my life on a day-to-day basis where I needed to surrender, where I needed to maybe not try to control everything. I was very much in my masculine energy. My transmitters were very much on. I was putting things out into the universe. I was setting intentions. I was making affirmations. I was doing. I was speaking my word into the universe. I was very much in that energy. Ayahuasca taught me how to receive. And then I, over the course of several months, was able to communicate with other plant medicines. Some of them I'll call by name, some of them I won't. Anyone who wants to know more about my experiences, please feel free to reach out to me privately, directly. So now the week after I got back from Costa Rica, actually 2 days after we recorded our episode, Ryan McKenna, who had co-facilitated the Costa Rica retreat, announced that he was going to also facilitate the Sacred Scotland tour in June, just a couple of months later.
Yeah.
I never had the desire to go to Scotland. I know I have Irish ancestry, but Scotland was never on my radar. But I had just had this amazing experience, and I had the travel bug. I was in this like powerful manifesting phase where I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do this, sign me up. Here's the deposit. Let's go, And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to another country in a couple months. I've just broken through this sort of mom milestone with my daughter, like leaving her for 8 days.
Right.
And Scotland was going to be longer than that.
Yeah.
So I knew there would also be a plant medicine ceremony there. Was not going to be ayahuasca, but I was prepared by then. I thought, whatever Ryan has on the itinerary, I am good to go. Like, I can do this. Nothing. If I can go through ayahuasca and all of the intensity of it, I can go through, the Highlands of Scotland.
Sure.
And go to Standing Stones and experience that energy, and I'm all good. So I made plans to do that, and it was so much easier to bring that trip into reality than it was Costa Rica. Like, it was just, I asked myself the question, how easy can this get? Like, how smooth can things go? It was just amazing. I met very little resistance in manifesting this trip. So, I was super excited. Now, one of the things that happened when I came back from Costa Rica as well was that my Kundalini energy was very active. When you spend a week in the jungle, you're going to come out of it with a lot of energy flow, a lot of, for me, a lot was awakened. Like I described in episode 17, how I was in the process of soul retrieval. I was calling back parts of myself that had been dormant for quite some time. One of those things that I discovered was my sexuality, just being a sexual person, like being awakened sexually. So some of the conversation we're going to have today is going to be about sex. Yay. So, just prepare mentally for that, listeners. I'm a double Scorpio, by the way. So I'm in this lifetime to reconcile myself to sex and sexual matters. So let's just put that out there right now.
Yeah.
And, I know you've done episodes with people who have talked about how that can really, the energy, letting your sexual energy flow can manifest amazing results for your business as well.
Yeah. Dr. Lauren Brim. We did an episode, Dr. Lauren Brim.
Yeah. So I'm no longer afraid to talk about these things. Like that's another great side effect of all the work I've been doing. So I wanted to reconnect with my daughter's father. Truth be told, we had not been romantic with each other for a few years. I was in total mom mode.
Yeah.
Total. Like he and I were like roommates, just taking care of the day-to-day grind. I know I am definitely not the only person who can relate to that.
No, there are people who spend decades, lifetimes in the same space.
Yeah.
For sure. It becomes very normal.
Yeah. It was the normal, and I had reconciled myself to the fact that I could maybe just spend the rest of my life like that, or at least until, Daisy was 18. My daughter, who's 5 years old. So I, because I'm a loyal, committed person.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, just go step out on a relationship. That's just not my jam. Right. So I was determined after I came back from Costa Rica to reconnect with my partner, and I tried, and it was met with surprise, shock, actually, and trepidation and resistance, and not at all any of the things that I was expecting or hoping for or feeling. So, I'm just coming back from this intense experience with ayahuasca. My Kundalini is awakened. I'm ready to be a full on grown woman, fully embodied person here, and ready to reconnect with my partner. I'm restless. I'm in my body for the first time in my life, and then crickets, right? So I poured all my energy into the Scotland trip. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, I have to be patient. This is something that's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
How did that feel for you in those moments? Like, did it feel like rejection? Did it feel
Absolutely.
okay?
Completely
Yeah.
rejected.
Yeah.
Triggering.
Yeah.
Triggered every single time I'd ever been rejected in a relationship.
Yeah.
But this time it was my life partner. You know,
Yeah.
we'd been together for 11 years and had a child together. And I'm like, oh boy, what is going to happen now?
Yeah. And
So,
also, I mean, it sounds like you were also very sensitive to realizing like sort of this is the norm that we've had. Now I'm this new person, I'm coming back. And so I guess I do have to be a little patient with him to kind of come around. And I guess,
yeah,
I guess it's worth that. It sounded like you kind of like slowed your roll a little bit and
I
was like,
did.
all
Yeah.
right, we'll just take a minute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would try to, and I would try to kiss him, and he was just like not even really receiving that. So
Yeah.
it hurt me deeply.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure some of your listeners can relate to that. You
For
know,
sure.
so I'm so
I mean,
willing.
I know when I have resistance, like when I have stuff going on with my husband, like there are times where, he wants to give affection or I want to like being shut off, like you can just shut off. I mean, compartmentalize and not want to connect and just be like, I'm not ready for that right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like, it's not that I'm not like, I don't think you're attractive. It's just like, I don't want that right now. It's
Right. You're not
a
in
hard
that
no.
space.
Yeah.
A hard no. And this was a hard no, like on a deep level.
Yeah.
I've had the habit in my life to turn off desire for anything that I thought I couldn't get.
Yeah.
If I can't get something, well, let's shut down the desire for it.
Right.
That'll
Totally.
fix that.
Yes.
One thing I've learned, Emily, over the course of the last several months is desire fuels the universe. Your desire is sacred.
Yeah.
Your desire is it's what makes everything. It's what makes us expand and move forward. And I have finally come to terms with my own desire. It's like my favorite childhood movie is The Never-Ending Story.
Oh yeah,
And
I love that movie.
At the end, Sebastian's like, in order to recreate Fantasia, he has to make a wish on this one grain of sand, and then it, expands. Then he's going to make another wish and another wish and another wish. And that's how I want to live my life. Like, that's how I'm determined to live my life now. It's just like, let my desires happen, and really tune into what I really want. Cause it's my right to have a desire as a human being. So coming from, close to 40 years of shutting down desires, that was like, oh boy, I don't want to live this way.
Right.
This is for the birds, right?
Right.
So, so I slowed my roll, like you said, and then we were in the process of moving as well. So a lot of life transitions going on at that time, a lot of intensity. But I had Scotland to look forward to, so I poured my energy into that. So before Scotland, I knew that my partner was not really prepared to have me away for that long. It was going to be almost 2 weeks, just with the flights and everything. So I did my best to prepare him, just like I did with Costa Rica, to hold everything down. He was going through some transitions with his business. He's an entrepreneur as well. And it ended up that while I was in Scotland, he had a really hard time. He didn't feel very supported. He was definitely, he told me after I came back that he was trying to hint for me to actually come home in the middle of the trip. He was having such a difficult time, like managing his business and taking care of our daughter. I didn't really know this because I was just tuned into the whole trip.
Sure.
But as far as the trip goes, I'll focus on that for a bit and then come back to the other story here. Scotland was magical. It was nothing short of magical. We flew to Edinburgh and then went into the Highlands. You saw some pictures of the standing stones.
Oh God, yeah. Just saying that, I'm like, I got chills down my whole body. Take me with you.
Oh yes, I remember you commented like, "Oh my God, oh my God." There was I gradually attuned myself to these energies and saw myself as a grid worker. Every place I go to that's like this, I feel like I'm a transmitter of energy. Like I'm grounding energy in these places. I'm helping to awaken these ancient sites from energetic bondage from years and millennia, really,
Yeah.
being suppressed. And then I'm getting energy from them as well.
Yeah.
So there's an energy exchange and there's an energy flow that happens when people go to sacred sites around the world. One of my passions in this life, I've realized, is doing grid work. So I, plan on doing some more traveling to places like that.
Cool.
The standing stones were electric.
Yeah.
Walking up to them, I felt a buzzing. And, it's funny because I just seen a few episodes of Outlander.
Oh, yeah.
On Netflix on the plane on the way over. And I was almost a little scared to like touch the stones because I didn't know what dimension I'd end up in, right? But it was powerful. And we saw there are many standing stone structures around the Highlands. And then for solstice, we ended up on the Isle of Lewis at the Callanish Standing Stones. And this is a huge structure. It's like Stonehenge, but in the north.
Wow.
On this island in the Hebrides. And I connected with many of the stones, and I would just go up to a stone and put my third eye and my heart on the stone. I would just stand right against it. Each one had a different personality.
Of course.
The rock people, it was amazing. And I just allowed whatever transmissions were going on, I didn't know what I was transmitting and receiving, but I knew it was powerful. So we stayed there the whole day. And there was also a ceremony there. Some other people come there to do a ceremony and, anchoring in all kinds of codes. And it was just out of this world. It was powerful. So that was kind of the culmination of our trip. We had other really amazing high points, like the sacred plant medicine ceremony in a Pictish circle. That's the Picts, who were, I think they were pre-Druids. If I get any of the history wrong, listeners, please forgive me. But the Picts were the ones, from what I learned from Ryan, they were the ones that originally wore like the blue paint, like you see in Braveheart.
Oh, yeah.
Faces. So we sat down in this circle, and we were there for a few hours, just taking in the energy. And my grandmother came to me. My actual grandmother.
Yeah.
Came to me at that point, and she was so proud of me and the life that I was leading. And it was a very emotional moment for me. Sure. So yeah, plant medicine definitely thins the veil.
Yeah.
That is for sure. So yeah, it's a place. Scotland is a place where I never thought that I would think fairies and trolls and unicorns, would be so close to this dimension, but it's a place where you can really sense those types of energies.
Yeah.
So yeah, fully out of the woo-woo closet now. But and then I climbed Mount Schiehallion. And I want to give a shout out to Liz McCutcheon of Running on Venti. She helped me train to climb that mountain. And that was a whole...
I know Liz.
Yeah, she's amazing. She got me in condition to climb a mountain. I'd never really set a goal for myself to climb a mountain, but I wanted to experience... One thing that I've wanted to do in the last several months is to be able to enjoy these places that are off the beaten path that maybe we have to hike to, and maybe we can't just like drive to. I've wanted to get in better physical condition so that climbing, hiking, etc. that's not the big event of my day.
Right.
Like that's not keeping me from enjoying the energies of these remote places. So I've definitely conditioned myself physically to be more ready to take in those energies. And
I think that's part of the whole picture.
The piece of the puzzle that I've never really paid attention to.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the whole picture too of, as we are evolving in our spirit, we're paying attention to like really our spirit being in our body, that it's literally the vehicle that we can deliver our spirit with. And so that's what takes, self-care even to another dimension where you're taking better care of yourself, not to like look hot in a bikini, but it's like really so that your soul can explore, so that your soul can live its best life in this form. So I'm glad that you just mentioned that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And a part of that is too, as I'll speak in the first person, as I became more embodied, I healed more of, my past traumas.
Yeah.
I was triggered more because when I get into my body, then that's a place that maybe hasn't been so safe in the past. That's why we stay out of our bodies so much. But to become fully embodied, healing takes place just, alongside that. So I've gone through a great amount of healing of past traumas in this life and others, and some ancestral stuff as well. So throw that in there. It was an amazing experience. I came back from Scotland even more, on fire for life than I did Costa Rica. But 2 days later, my partner was going to be on a long project out of state. He does home renovations, and he was going to my best friend's house 7 hours away while she was on her vacation. And what we thought was going to be a 4-week project became a 7-week project. So I was all of a sudden home alone with our daughter for 7 weeks.
Whoa.
And we kept thinking that, it's just going to be a few more days. But then, like any renovation project, things get, kind of crazy.
Wow.
We were separated. So I had all this time to myself, just to reflect and to think and to integrate my experiences of Costa Rica and Scotland. So I was grateful for the experience of being alone. I deal very well with being alone. I'm an introvert. I can recharge like the best of them. So
I love being alone too. I used to, people be like, don't you want to have a roommate? I'm like, this is by design. I like being alone.
Exactly.
This is the choice that I made.
Exactly. And, and so my daughter's so independent, like she'll go and do her thing in her room and I'll be in my room. And it's very, it was very recharging for me. Meanwhile, though, my partner was going through some more hard times. Just the project it just came with all its challenges. It was during Mercury retrograde.
Oh yeah.
So it was just, one hot mess after another. I mean, it ended up being beautiful, but 7 weeks later, I think the day before he came home, I claircognizantly knew, I had the words come into my mind, major shifts coming soon.
Yeah.
And that all of this rest has been for me to regroup and recharge because major shifts are happening. I didn't know what that meant, but cool. I'm there. I'm intense, right? I can handle whatever.
Yeah.
So he comes home. There was a lot of confusion and miscommunication around his arrival back home. Things were weird. I knew he wasn't himself, and I was just going to be patient and loving and just, receive him in whatever state he was in. I just really didn't know how much of a mental toll it took on him to be away from his family for that long and to encounter that many problems, as he did on that project. So it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks of just miscommunication, like strange, he wasn't himself. And I felt really anxious about that. Like, we've been through periods of time where we miscommunicated, but we always came back around to each other. But this was different. And so,
well, I'm going to jump in because, as you said, he was losing it. When you were saying that, what came through to me was that actually he was losing himself as you were reclaiming and rediscovering yourself.
He told me he didn't even know who himself was to look. I was telling him how much I loved him. He's like, I don't even have the self right now to say I can love you back at this moment. And
here you are, like fully in yourself, in your knowing, in your body, in your being, and he's just like lost. Yeah.
So he had always told me that I was it for him, that he was committed. He's a Libra, very committed, loyal, balanced person, and I knew I could depend on that promise. But then I started to think, well, I'm not going to hold him to a promise that is going to make us both miserable. Because I knew that, he had made it clear that he, in between the Costa Rica and Scotland trip, that he didn't feel romantically attracted to me anymore. That was the one part they left out before. That was like the killer, like, ugh, so I'm like, okay. We'd even talked about having an open relationship. just to get our needs met. Right. So that was a weird moment in and of itself. So, but I was just like, oh yeah, well, he'll end up finding someone before I do. Cause men always do, that was my,
sure. These different stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Oh yeah. Don't even get me started on all the stories I've released.
Right.
So one morning it just became clear to me, I just come to a place of surrender. Ayahuasca was coming back into my consciousness and reminding me, surrender. There is nothing you can control in the situation other than choosing to surrender. And I came to the point where I said to myself, if this is it for our relationship, I'm there. This is, I'm not going to force anything to be. And so it was a Wednesday morning. We were in a confusing conversation, miscommunicating. And I said, I know you made a promise to me one time that you would be with me until the end, but what sense does it make for me to hold you to that promise if it's going to make us both miserable? Yeah. And that was the shifting point. Total change in tone. We sat down and talked heart to heart and realized that we were going to be co-parents and do the best we could at doing that. And that we acknowledged the end of our romantic, connection. But Emily, it was like I was reborn. I was like, oh my God, I did this. Like I graduated this karma, this relationship, like everything, every lifetime we had ever spent together culminated in this one moment where we were able to heart to heart with deep love and respect for each other, agree that we would continue in the capacity as co-parents.
Right. And that's just for a lot of people, most people, I would say, it's a really big stretch to think that they can have this uncoupling or a breakup in such a conscious way, in such a loving way. Yeah. And because usually when you think of like breaking up, you're like, screaming at each other.
I'd always feared it would be that way too.
Yeah.
I'd had dreams of like us breaking up in anger and then having, all kinds of conflict. And it was the highest timeline. It was the highest timeline for us both. So that set in motion a flurry of activity. My guides were very happy for me. I remember sitting down at my desk after the conversation and I felt, usually I know my guides are there, they're there, they're helping me and everything, but I felt them there. They were just like, you go, like, this is amazing. You did exactly what you set out to do. And this is the beginning of the rest of your life, essentially. Yeah. Like I felt like it was graduation day. So I was happy. I was sad, I was just all the things. And, so very quickly, he'd had a female friend who had kind of helped him through a lot of the summer difficulties he had. And that actually, once I released him from our relationship, that became a romantic relationship, which I was actually really happy about. She's a wonderful person and I couldn't wish for anyone better for him. So, of course it was bittersweet, like, oh, he's moving on. So and I promise I'm going to get back to plant medicine in a second. This is all the filler here.
Yeah.
This is the part where I come out and say I'm bisexual. Yeah. And I've known this since my 20s. Right?
This is the part where I say,
right?
This is the part when
So, and he and I had talked about if we ever, wanted to bring in a woman into our relationship, then we were open to that. It just never worked out because I had, our daughter, like we were in active talks about it, but then, motherhood came and changed all that. But pretty much at any time in my life, I've been in a relationship with a man, I've missed the connection with a woman and vice versa. So I know, I'm bisexual. So a week later, I was bored. It was the morning. I was on my phone. I'm like, I'm going to sign up for Tinder, right? Because that's what you do. So it was a carnival. I mean, I got all kinds of interesting messages, as you can imagine. Sure. Online dating is really, just be glad you're not there.
I did that for a little while and I feel sad. Like there's sadness in my heart for kids who like literally they grow up thinking that this is how you meet and connect with people. Like, oh God, I'm so sorry for you.
Yeah.
But it is what that's their choice.
It is what it is. It's how people, connect. So I signed up as bisexual so I could see like, okay, let's see what, type of experience I attract into my life now. One side note, after the uncoupling is what I call the uncoupling. I had a surge of, my sexual self returned to me.
Yeah.
It'd been dormant for years and years, under layers of, suppression, childhood sexual molestation that was in my family for generations, and ancestral trauma, shame, guilt, all of those things running through my veins, in my DNA, had played a part in how easy it was for me to shut down my desire for intimacy with my partner all those years. We uncoupled. It was instant. I felt like, oh my goodness.
Like I'm alive again.
I'm alive. And I can actually attract someone into my experience that maybe like I'm more sexually compatible with. That was an issue, like the compatibility factor.
More sexually compatible than zero sex for a number of years. Yes.
Exactly. So I was really excited. It's like now I can, all the things that I complained weren't there. Like there's a possibility of them being there now. And so I got all kinds of messages. I was definitely turned off by all the ones that were outright like, hey, want to get busy, So I just wasn't there. I'm a sapiosexual. So like I will connect with someone, mentally and emotionally first. So anyway, I ended up being intrigued by this one person. She gave me permission to use her name, Katie. And she and I struck up a conversation. In her profile, she said she was married, she was a hot mess, and that her husband knew she was, reaching out to women, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is just, there was something about her picture. I just had to at least strike up a conversation of like, we don't really live close to each other, but I think we might have interesting chats. So, let's connect. So we struck up a conversation, and I found my first question to her was, does your husband support your exploration of women?
Yeah, good question.
I had to get that out of the way. I'm totally not interested in being, a homewrecker. So I got that out of the way. And she said, yeah, we've been through some difficult times where I've made it clear to him that I need a woman in my life as well. And not just, not just for fun, but, to have that experience. And, okay, well, so at this point I'm thinking, okay, do I really want to connect with just a woman, or do I want to explore? Like the whole thing about being bisexual is like, okay, if you're monogamous and you're with one person, you're going to be with like most likely one gender,
Sure.
So you're kind of missing out, so like I had to come to terms with who I was, really what I wanted.
Right. So, am I going to be with a man or a woman? Am I going to be monogamous? Am I not going to be monogamous? Like, am I been tethered down? Is that part of like what's been bothering me, that I don't want to be in a relationship? Like, I'm sure there's like all those questions that are buzzing around.
Very much so. And I had been connecting with a particular plant medicine that for many people is very relaxing and helps them chill out. But for me, it takes me on a journey. It's lightly psychedelic with visuals for me. That's the way my body and consciousness respond to it. So I went into a personal kind of ceremony with it, communicated with this plant consciousness, because plants have a consciousness, and the earth has provided us with so many teachers, whether it's animals, people, you name it, but plants have a really interesting consciousness. They're so intelligent when you can connect with them. And with this particular plant medicine, I would enter into like a question answer session. I would ask questions that would be instantly answered by this very lighthearted kind of jolly spirit consciousness. It was just, so I went into this space and asked, am I really supposed to be with just a woman, or am I still into men? Like, where am I at this season of my life? And I got very clear that, I was in both spaces. So, so I communicated that to her, And within like 24 hours, her husband joined our conversation. It was very serendipitous. I had already told her that if I was going to have anything to do with her, I wanted to meet her husband. I wanted him to know who I was, and I wanted to know what this was. I wanted there to be clear communication all around.
Yeah.
He's also given me permission to use his name. His name is Sean. So, we all struck up a conversation together, just chatting, over Messenger, and the chemistry was undeniable. The energy of the three of us was balanced. That's one thing. When I saw his picture pop up in one of her messages, I felt a sense of balance, like, oh, okay. Well, this is new. This is interesting.
Yeah.
And so over the course of a couple of weeks, we decided we're going to meet in person. The chemistry continued. And I was very grateful for that, the plant medicine and the message that I, really wanted to experience both energies at this point in my life. And so, we met up, we had a wonderful daytime date. We went out into nature and just had a wonderful time. And then the conversation continued from there. Like, okay, do we want to take this to the next level? Well, for me, this would be my first time, like, getting back into some type of intimate romantic relationship in several years, not only with one person, but with two.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what does this mean? Is this, can I handle this? And it was just very secret, my daughter's father was very supportive of it. He was like, yeah, go for it. This is something that's perfect for you. They seem like nice people, like, just, be careful and make your boundaries known at every step of the way. So anyway, we had planned to get together for an overnight visit, and we're very clear about what we wanted, what we didn't want, and so forth. But the night before, I sat with that same plant medicine again. I was just inspired to. I was guided to, but it was a stronger experience. It was, I knew within 15 minutes that I was going on a journey. I was going on a shamanic journey.
Like, see you later. This is happening. Yep.
This is happening. Fortunately, I had support. I had, my best friend was on the phone with me for 3 hours while I basically, I'm going to backtrack for a second. There's a woman named Sarah Kennedy, and she is an empowerment and sexuality coach. I have not worked with her personally, but I follow her on Facebook. She talks about the female pain body and the female pleasure body. And the female pain body is a collective and individual body based on millennia of patriarchy, of abuse, rape, torture, whatever. It's stored in our DNA. It's in our bodies. And as individuals, we are just born into it. And then those of us who awaken to it have the choice to let it go in favor of our pleasure body. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I've been experiencing, the pain body. All the man hating, all, that you see in the world, all of the feeling, going into victim mode, victim mentality, that's part of it. So I was like, well, how am I going to be open and free and like free of guilt and shame ever in a sexual relationship if I have this covering me, So that was in my mind. I also had worked with you in a mini soul book editing session that cleared some stuff away.
Yeah.
I had also recently worked with Christina Lee Jensen in an Akashic Records session that just cleared some stuff. So I was consciously clearing all that stuff. But then this particular night, when I sat with this plant medicine, I felt really anxious. The stuff from ayahuasca came back up, feeling like the need to control the experience. I was able to, connect with my best friend and get on the phone with her. And I was like, the way I explained it to her, where my consciousness was, I was fully there on the downbeat, but the other 3 beats of every measure, I was somewhere else.
Yeah.
So downbeat, clear. 2, 3, 4, somewhere in the galaxy. And so it was hard to keep up with where, I was trying to keep control and I couldn't.
Yeah.
The anxiety, a little paranoia, a little bit of, and I was in a safe environment. This wasn't anything where I was endangering myself or anything, but the emotions I felt come up felt very scary to me. And I couldn't make it stop. So, so then I started to say, as a divine sovereign being of light, I now transmute all anxiety into peace. I had the presence of mind to transmute and alchemize.
Wow.
And I did that for the next hour or two. I took every single scary, negative, sad, traumatic emotion that came up and verbally transmuted it into whatever its opposite was in the moment or whatever I wanted.
Wow.
So, they turned into peace, love, joy, pleasure. Like looking back on that experience, I feel like I burned off almost all of my female pain body.
And I also want to kind of just jump in and just be like, this is so beautiful because, I feel like I'm preaching all the time of saying everyone has everything that they need inside of them. They're all born innately whole.
Yes.
And we forget. And so there's this part of your soul and your being that you've awoken, like you're in this moment where you're saying like most of your conscious self is like kind of on vacation. Let's say it's like another dimension is like, see you later, Liz. I got things to do.
Yeah.
But your conscious self is like, okay, we got clearing to do. And you are aware enough to actually remember how to do the work for yourself as well.
Yes. I was so grateful. And that gratitude took me far as well. I leaned into all of the lighter emotions and I was able to sustain this buoyancy. And then after a while, I would feel the buoyancy kind of sink a little bit. And I guess there was more stuff to clear. And then I got to the point where I was straight up channeling. Like my guides were there. They have a great sense of humor, by the way.
Totally.
They are quick. They are like lightning speed wit. And I was in that space where I was able to directly communicate with them. Normally I'm just like, I have an awareness that they're there. I have a sense of their messages, but in that space, I was like right there with them. They were telling me at one point what percentage done I was with this journey. Okay, you're 50% done now. You're 97% done. And the longest time was like from 98% to 100%. And my best friend Brandy was having the most wonderful time witnessing this. She was just being present. I told her she was the shaman, but I realized I was the shaman and she was the space holder, for the experience. And so I wish I'd recorded all the stuff I was channeling. I was just like coming through with all this stuff and just having faith that I was going to integrate it somehow.
Have you recorded yourself before channeling?
No. Well, I tried a second time. I haven't been able to replicate this particular experience, I guess, because I haven't needed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've tried to. But I think that's something that I'd like to get into more as I become a clearer, vessel for these energies.
Yeah.
So I know you do it in the closet.
Right. Well, so if I know, like, I'm going to sit with myself for a little while and do some deeper work, I will I'll put my voice memo on my phone and I'll just start recording. And as things come through and I'm seeing stuff, I'll record it. I actually, only one time have I ever done this, but I did record a video of myself. It's like maybe 2 or 3 minute video. I'll probably have to share it at some point. Of when I had this huge awakening, this huge light transmission that happened to me when I was in San Diego last year. And I was like, you could see my eyes were all puffy. I was crying. I was like, this thing, and I'm like describing what happened. And as like the seconds go by, you can see him kind of coming back into my body. And I'm like, and the words don't matter. It's fine.
And right.
Exactly. Like, damn it, you had to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there. It's just, I was in a completely different space. Yeah. And then, finally, when a few hours later, I was done and I was being told I was done.
Yeah.
And I was able to get off the phone with Brandy and I had this very peaceful, loving energy, this feeling kind of like after ayahuasca, like I was able to be in this space where I was in total release and surrender. And I thought, oh, great. Now I've got to like get a good night's sleep and then have this date tomorrow night with 2 people.
So that's happening in a minute.
That's happening, right? And so I thought, how am I going to go? And I'm like, well, it'll be grounding. It'll be grounding if nothing else. So I will say this, that if not for that clearing, I did some deep clearing. I came away from the experience with them the next night, like zero shame, zero guilt, full pleasure, full enjoyment, fully in my body, totally new experience. I was able to take in all of the sensory inputs. And that's another thing. We all have a set point for wealth, for happiness, for joy, for pleasure, you name it. And I was very conscious leading up to that new experience that I had a set point for pleasure. So I consciously worked on lifting that set point. And who is it? Christiane Northrup's daughter.
Kate.
What is her name? Kate, thank you. She has a hack for increasing your set point. As I expand in, fill in the blank here, I inspire others to do the same. Yeah. So that whole week, as I expand in pleasure, I inspire others to do the same. And it was, I was richly rewarded by doing that work. So, you know, I mean, this is all about that. With the help of plant medicine, I've connected with this consciousness that reflects back to me my own consciousness in a way that I would not otherwise be able to do that, or to see those parts of myself. And I've been able to expand my life. I have been able to shift my reality tremendously. So, you know, we go from there into, now I'm in a polyamorous closed triad. So, okay, Liz is here now. This is where we are in our life now. Yeah. Okay, cool. But it's like the best scenario for me. I'm getting that masculine and feminine balancing energy that for whatever reason I need. And it's a beautiful experience. And you know, as of this recording, like, we're all very happy. Our families have met each other. Daisy's gotten to meet them and spend time with them. We're all kind of in the polyamory community, they call it a polycule. The unit where we all, even if we're not all involved together, you know, romantically, we all work together to coordinate dates and times and get-togethers and so forth. So, you know, but then I realized that I had to kind of come out to my parents.
Right. I remember you were telling me, like, leading up, like, woo,
to make all that work. Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, to make that long story short, I chose to, well, my mom knew I'd been in a relationship with a woman many years ago. So I just kind of revisited that with my mom.
Yep.
And you may hear a cat in the background here, but yeah, it's a cat. I just kind of revisited that with my mom and said, hey, remember when I told you I was bisexual, you know? And she's like, yes. I said, well, I still am.
Yep.
And and I also had to disclose that the uncoupling, because we didn't tell anyone for a couple of months, because we just wanted to get everything kind of situated with our routine and what our plans were going to be, and you know, working through it with Daisy and everything. So I told her that, and I also told her there were 3 levels of disclosure: the uncoupling, a reminder of the fact that I'm bisexual, and then, oh yeah, not only am I bisexual, but I'm actively in a relationship with a man and a woman, and it's great. So my mom was super supportive, former hippie that she is.
Way to go, Mom.
Yeah, way to go, Mom. And she did the dirty work of telling my dad. I was going to disclose it to him, but she did it before I could. And he was a little bit taken aback. He still doesn't understand it, bless his heart. Like, he's just, you know, they're from that generation, and he has a lot of social programming, religious programming and so forth. But now he's at a point where, I mean, he treats me just the same. You know, I made a point to him, I haven't changed at all. It's just, you now know some new information about me. And, you know, he took that to heart. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, and I've also, there's another plant medicine that I've really been connected with lately, and that's cacao. Cacao is raw chocolate.
Yeah.
It's got so many health benefits, but it also is a heart centering plant medicine.
Yeah.
And it has brought me into my heart, because I realized that in the context of this relationship, this triad, that you know, communication is essential, right? And And so I realized right off the bat, I needed to be in my heart space and not in my head, and not getting all triggered and staying in my head once those triggers came up for me. Because here's the thing. I'd been with this Libra for so many years, right? My dad's a Libra. I had another Libra boyfriend at some point in my life. Sean's a Libra. Katie's a Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio. My parents, my dad's a Libra. My mom's a Scorpio. So there's some lessons in there somewhere.
Wow.
It's like a trigger a day, right? But when I'm in my heart space, the triggers are simply opportunities.
For sure.
To do deep healing on myself, deep healing of past traumas, and deep ancestral healing as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, part of what I'm also hearing is not only is it a big leap in improving communication, but there's also this big leap in taking on responsibility for your own joy, for your life circumstances, and just being the active pursuer of those things, like really being in that seat of like, this is exactly what I want, or maybe this isn't what I want. And I think sometimes I think we're sort of a little bit narrow in our thinking in our society, where it's like this is a relationship and then you get married and that's what you do. And like, that doesn't work. It's a broken model, very broken. We all know that. And there's a lot of weight that kind of comes with that, and these beliefs that comes with it, and the stories that come with it, and expectations that come with it. And just all that old programming, like what you were saying, your parents, like your mom is more open than your dad, but now it's like you have this conversation. There's somebody who I really admire, who talks about sexuality and relationships, which is Dan Savage. Do you listen to him at all?
No. Sounds familiar though.
He's so cool. I first heard him on Joe Rogan's podcast maybe like a decade ago. And he came kind of back to my awareness. I want to say like a few months ago. I was listening to Armchair Expert podcast with Dax Shepard, and he was a guest, and it was actually a live podcasting that they did. And Dan is hilarious, but he's also just so smart with his intellect, but just his life experience and how he kind of breaks down like relationships and sexuality and how he's communicate about it. He even shares a story about like from one of his kids, like or from his kid talking about sexuality as well. But just I really do believe that these conversations are becoming more normal to have. And it's like, why should it not be? Like, I mean, we're humans, we're sexual beings. Like, why can we not talk about this? I mean, I grew up in Northern California, which is like the most like open, like we don't care what you do, who you are. It's great. Everyone's great here. And when I moved to the East Coast, I found there was a very different mindset mentality. And I was like, I could care less what people do in their house. Like, I don't care if you're making hot dogs for dinner or if you're making salad. Like, I just don't care. It has nothing to do with me. And that's kind of always been like my stance. I was like, great, you're happy? Great. Awesome. But coming back to like plant medicine and this kind of weaving this intricate tapestry of like how we can get back to ourselves, how we can use nature to also remind us and help us kind of bring back and resurrect these parts of our soul and parts of ourselves that have been dormant or just kind of like muted from our life experience. I love that you can use that, and it can be this catalyst for tremendous growth and opportunities coming up.
Yeah. And definitely it has been a catalyst for me, and has been such a gentle awakening. I mean, there have been moments that have been intense, but I have always felt supported. In the last year, it's about a year since I first experienced plant medicine now, and it has been the most transformative year of my life. But it's been gentle. It's been manageable. I felt supported. I felt loved, and in ways that, I mean, they say like one night of ayahuasca is worth 10 years of therapy.
Oh, for sure.
I believe it.
Oh, I've heard even more. Like that's just, I mean, that's the funny thing. And I feel like there's a curiosity in me, and there is this desire to want to check it out. And when you were talking about just letting go and surrendering, like control, I'm like, oh, she's speaking to me. Like I mean, for sure, I'm definitely this person who's very open. I'm going on a journey and my mind is open for different opportunities. Like I see weird shit without any kind of plant medicine. Like, please. But there's another level to that as well. And I do believe that I have some issues with control. And I know, like, when I've done certain plant medicines, like, I am very much the one who is like, did everybody see that? Like,
I know some people who can simply be in the same room with a plant medicine and they will experience the effects. They don't even need to ingest it. They're simply tuning into the vibration of it.
Yeah. And that's basically how I was, but I was like, oh, let's, I had friends who like would smoke weed and I was like, great. And everyone's having a great time. I was like, this is 100% not my experience. Like, I don't have like a shred of what you're having. Like my experience is entirely internal. Yeah. I'm literally reading people's energy, their minds. I'm reading past lives, and I'm just like full on downloading like all kinds of like crazy ancestral shit. I'm like, this is so much information. Like nobody else is getting this. Like,
right. Cause you have a different relationship with that plant medicine than they do. And that's what, that's me, Yeah. And they say that, once you have that type of experience with a plant medicine, in particular cannabis, that you can't do it recreationally. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for you that way. You can't.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, so you're also you're making me, or I'm feeling safe around you talking about it.
Yes.
I feel really safe. And I also feel like I would feel safe enough to be able to let go of the control and the grips that I have on the things that I have controlling grips on.
Yeah. Yeah. The wonderful thing about surrender is when you reach that point of surrender, you have zero resistance. And all the things that have been waiting to come into your experience, that have just been hanging out in your energy field, but couldn't get in because you've got the wall up or you're transmitting and not receiving, that can come in that state of surrender. It's like people like you and me, we kind of have to force ourselves to get to that place sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like we just have to clench so tight that we get so exhausted and there's no other thing to do but surrender. And that I've just realized that's the MO of my life. That's my MO. That surrender, I come to surrender through extreme control. And as long as I get there, that's what's important. I'd like to get there more, in a more relaxed way, but
it takes practice, I find. And I know it's certainly when it comes to my business, because the business is like certainly been my biggest teacher of how I can let go more, because I can see myself getting tight and grip and clenching and like wanting to control an outcome. And the more I do that, I feel it in my body, I feel it in my system. It's like, okay, I'm going to let go. Like our recent like cart open day, where normally it would look a certain way and it didn't look that way. And I started to make these stories and make me have these feelings in my body. And I was like, fuck this. And I literally like shut my computer. It was like a day when I think most business owners would be like, refreshing the email and trying to do things and adding more things on their to-do list. I literally shut my computer. I went downstairs. I ate. I had a nice cup of tea and I put on a comedy special and I literally just like hung out with myself.
Yeah.
I was like, this feels good.
And then you're just you're magnetizing yourself and things just come more easily.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, when we closed the day, as far as like sales is concerned, we had a 14% conversion on the wait list that we would normally have like maybe 10%. So it was like, okay, so that worked, doing less, very effective.
Yes.
But it's like, that's like, I think it's our habit. It's our habit of clenching, tightening, controlling. And we think that it's safer when we do that. And it's really the opposite is true, is when you actually allow in for miracles, you allow for breakthroughs, you allow for transformation, you allow yourself to literally peel off the layers of who you've been so you can step up to just become something even more miraculous than you were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. It's like breathing. You breathe out, you breathe in, you or like a pump, it's just, there is a dual motion. you can't be clenching all the time. You have to release and allow the receiving to happen. I had a consultation with a potential client recently who had been searching for it. She's a salon owner, and she works with a lot of energy work as well. She was looking for the perfect stylist, her soulmate stylist, your soulmate clients, right? Yeah. And so she said, well, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I've been doing my affirmations, I've been setting my intentions, I've been doing all the things. And I said, well, it sounds like what a lot of women go through when they're trying to find the one, trying to find love, and love is nowhere to be found, even though you're doing all the things. I said, have you considered relaxing for a day, doing something fun? Right. She said, someone told me that just the other day. Okay, I'm listening now. And I need to take my own advice as well. But, in being in this space of being in a relationship where it's full, like it's multidimensional, like there's connection on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, etc. I've had so much fun and so much enjoyment and so much pleasure that, like, I've been in that receiving moment. My money flow has increased. I have not worried in the last few months like I used to, and things just work out. And I'm away from my computer for like 2 days at a time, and it's okay. The world doesn't come crashing down, and just things are easier because I'm allowing them to be finally. And I can't wait to see what more, how I can expand even more, and relax even more and allow even more.
Yeah.
So this is just the beginning.
So one of the questions that came up earlier, actually was around the uncoupling, was what advice would you give yourself or someone like you to be able to move through a transition swiftly or more easily or more joyfully? I mean, it sounds like your progression was actually really so flowy and beautiful, but what advice would you give somebody? I mean, even if somebody who's not as far down the path as you guys were, if they're kind of at the beginning of the path and they're like, something smells fishy around here, they're sensing that something is maybe awry, or they're not living up to where they want to be.
In those situations, your head, it seems like the safest place to be, but it's anything but. Your head is the least safe place to be, because your brain will kick in and create stories around every little thing. It's like your irrational brain, I've heard it described as. And I was in that headspace. I got into my heart. I didn't even mention this. I had when he came home, he came home, and then he went off for another week just to have a vacation from that job.
Oh my God.
And so it was that intense. But when he came home, I had cacao waiting for us, for all three of us as a family to sit with. And I knew that any conversations that would take place from that point forward had to be from the heart, had to be through the heart, had to be involved with the heart. The head was not going to get me where I needed to go. So my advice would be, if you can at all, get into your heart, because you may think it's not safe to be in your heart, but that is the safest, strongest place you can be. Your heart intelligence has information for you that you simply cannot access if you're just in your head.
Yeah. I feel you on that, and I agree with that wholeheartedly as well.
Totally.
I don't mean to say that, but I really do. And I can relate to that, because I felt like my relationship had reached a tipping point as well. And it's not something I've talked to a lot of people about or shared a lot on the podcast. I think I maybe said it in one episode, but my relationship with my husband had really come to this tipping point where we've been going to see a therapist for quite a while, and it was helpful, very, very helpful. And I had just had a lot of anger inside of my body and feeling very just like hostile, like, it wasn't like he didn't have to do much to like really set me off. And I was realizing, because I'm so introspective, and like I'm, always now like evaluating myself. And I was like, just realizing that it's not even that I want him to change who he is right now. Like there's things I would like him to do differently. And certainly like those are my controlling tendencies. But more than any of that, what I realized when it really came back into my heart was that I didn't like who I was being. And yes, it had to do with him, but it didn't. I didn't like how I was speaking. I didn't like who I was being. I didn't like how I was mothering. And I looked at that, not like in a judgy way, like I'm a bad person, but in a just a reflective way of like, I don't like who I'm being in this situation. I'm not my best self right now.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that gave me the most power and the most love of saying, I need to actually love myself a little bit more right now. I need to be more loving of me. And part of being more loving of me is I need to change who I am. I need to possibly change my environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we talk about plants, right? But think about a plant. When you plant a seed, it's not just like the seed's job to just like grow. You have to have the right environment for it to thrive in.
Yeah.
And similar to you is like, we need to be in the right environment with the right things to help us grow. And I actually realized it was time I was finding myself looking for apartments. Like I was like, all of a sudden, like woke up. I'm like, oh my God, why am I on this website? It's like,
Wow.
I'm like scrolling, finding places for me and my kids and my dog. I'm like, holy shit. Like this is like a big awake. I need to look at this.
Yeah.
And when I had a conversation with him about that, it was a conversation that I felt was just going to go one direction. Like, you know what, this is it. But it turned out to be the most powerful shift positively in our relationship to date. Where we could, just like you and your partner could sit down heart to heart and talk to each other.
Yeah.
It was this heart to heart conversation and not coming from a hurt Emily, hurt pain and this bad taste in my mouth, but really this heart to heart. So, I love that advice of really just sinking into your heart. And that's really, I mean, that's how I do my business too. It's like everything you have to get out of your head and really make decisions consciously from your heart center. The other thing that really came through when you were talking was that cacao ceremony, and even just the space that you hold for people other than yourself. I really feel like you have a gift in doing that. And maybe it's something that you have already started to uncover a little bit, but I just feel like you have something really special there. I could feel it from when you said that. It was like this really strong energy that came off of you that I'm like, oh, I want to be around that. Like it's very, I can feel that from you. So I don't know if you're already exploring that or not, but it just feels good.
I did a cacao ceremony with Katie and Sean recently because we were in a space where I was personally communicating from my head and not getting the results that I wanted and not communicating what I really wanted to communicate. And I sat all of us down, and we drank cacao together. And since then, there's been a whole other level of heart energy in the relationship. It's amazing. Wow. So cacao, I can't speak highly enough of cacao. It's very loving plant medicine. Different people are going to experience it in slightly different ways. Some people will feel spaced out. Some people will feel grounded. Some people will just feel very loving. But I had the opportunity to experience it in Costa Rica and in Scotland. So it's one thing that I'm moving forward with, getting my own ceremonial cacao to have on hand in situations where, heart medicine is needed. Communicating from the heart is needed. And all my life, so much lip service I've heard paid to getting into your heart. And it's just like, blah, 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 heart this, heart that. There's something to it.
Oh, and for sure.
If you're in your head, it doesn't really mean much, but when you're actually connecting in with the heart, it's a whole other way of doing life. So.
It really, really is. I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'm going to ask you a question after the podcast is over.
Okay.
It might involve something for you listeners. Any case, moving on. But I do appreciate that. And I agree. It's like there's certain lessons and certain teachings that we've heard over and over again, but we had to hear it that next time in a different space to really hear and really feel the words.
Yeah.
I mean, that's happened to me in so many occasions where I'm just like, one more time. Oh yeah. Like you could you feel it. Yeah. So I really love that. How have your first holidays been?
Oh, wow. Great question. Thanksgiving, we just did, I think my family needed, my dad in particular, maybe needed the reassurance that we're still a family unit, when going into holiday situations, that we're, I think he thought maybe that I'd had my heart broken or something, like too kind in the first meeting with, my co-parenting partner. After all this, was disclosed. And my mom set him straight, though. She's good at that.
Like protective of you? Is that kind of how he was showing up?
Absolutely. And I said, it's not at all like that. I appreciate
Okay.
it. I see through, this is a way of showing love to me. I said, there's no victim here. We're all very much in our power. We're very happy. I'm communicating better with my daughter's father than ever before.
I'm sure.
I mean, he tells me regularly he will always love me. He will never not love me. And he's got my best interest at heart. Like, we're just all this kind of, it's just, there's so much love.
Yeah.
So much love. It's more love. I feel more love in my life than I've ever felt before. It's just amazing. So, holidays have been, we all already figured out Christmas. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to get to see who they want to see and when they want to see them. We got that coordinated just today. So
wow.
I'm going to be ringing in the new year with my loves, and my daughter and her father and his girlfriend will ring in the new year together. Like, we are working everything together so well, and this can happen. This is possible for anyone with the right communication, so I really believe that with intention. This is the intention that I set going into this. Well, if this is going to be what happens, if I'm uncoupling from this man I've been with for 11 years, my intention is for us to be loving and respectful of one another, and to show our daughter that she is always loved. She is always supported, and that she has more people now who love her than ever before.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now, she knows that daddy has a girlfriend and mommy has a girlfriend and a boyfriend.
Like, great, right? It's like,
right?
Cool. Okay.
Cool.
And then
totally down,
and then, like, for all the people who are like, what will they think? You know what kids think? Okay. Yeah. That's what they think. That's like as much as they think about it.
That's as much as they think about it. Right. They don't care. They're like, cool.
Great. So we can all be friends. Okay, bye.
Cool. Yeah, exactly.
They don't care. They are present in this moment. They're not thinking about yesterday's. Yeah. They're not thinking about tomorrow's. They are here and now and going, okay, great, I accept.
Yeah. And they have kids. They have 2 kids, a 13-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy. And he's already in college. I mean, they're super amazing, intelligent, compassionate, loving kids. Yeah. I love them. I think they think I'm pretty cool. I hope, and they're going to sit down with them in, I think, a few days and actually tell them, well, this is how special Liz is to us. She's actually, our girlfriend. And so they're going to disclose to them. I told them they're going to be fine. Like, they're going to be like, okay, can I get back to my game now or whatever?
Right. But also, we also have to remember, we're co-creators of our life. So are they. And they've also co-created this experience. They've chosen their parents. They've chosen all of these circumstances in their life to help who they are becoming every single day. So as much as we can be like, oh my God, what about, they chose this too. Don't worry. We all chose this collectively.
We all opted in to this experience. So, let's make it the highest timeline possible. Let's infuse this with as much love as we can. Yeah. And see how good can things get? That's the question I ask myself. I may have mentioned this on the previous episode. But how good can it get? And every time I ask that question, the universe answers with, well, it can get this good. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I love that you've been so open-hearted and sharing this story with me, with all of our listeners. I know that people have so connected with you on the previous episode. Yeah. So like, if you guys haven't already listened, go back and listen to it. Right now, episode 17. You can find Liz in multiple places. You're on Instagram.
Lizlee Media, pretty much any of the social media platforms. You can find me on Lizlee Media, LizleeMedia.com, LizLee.com. So I'm in all those places.
Great. So I definitely, I always encourage listeners to reach back to us and tag us in their stories as they're listening or after they've listened. I know, like I said, last episode, people listen to multiple times. So like, if you're listening to it, reach out to us. Let us know that you're with us. Liz opened the book. She said, hey, if you guys need to ask me a question, ask me a question. So please reach out to her. She's opened the door. I love this conversation, and I hope we have many more of them like this. And maybe you'll be the first person when that's a trifecta on the podcast.
Part 3, the power of 3.
Right? Yeah, exactly. The power of 3.
I also want to show you can't, if you're listening to this, you can't see this, but they made this beautiful necklace for me. So it's actually a symbol that was on the mountain I climbed.
Yeah.
By ancient druids. It's a triskelion, and it's a 3-sided spiral. And so they made that for me for my birthday. They're very talented people. So
wow.
So I thank you so much for having me back on. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm a huge fan of yours, of the work you do, as well as a friend. And I'm just so grateful to be able to share my story with you and your listeners.
Thank you. It's so great. Oh, so good. Thank you, Liz. You guys make sure you reach out to Liz, find us on Instagram, tag us in your stories. This is exciting. And if there's more of these episodes that you guys are like, oh, she said that thing that one time on that podcast, and you're like, oh, I would like for her to dig deeper into that. Or, Liz mentioned a lot of amazing resources on this episode as well. If there's one of them that you kind of research, and, this is all going to be in the show notes. So make sure that if there's one of those resources that you find really interesting or fascinating, reach out to me, and maybe we can have that person or those people on the podcast. We're always open to new guests, and we always have lots of new people reaching out to me. I mean, every week to say, hey, could I be a guest, or could so-and-so be a guest on your podcast? So we have some really amazing new people, especially coming this year. I mean, we're barely a year old, and we've already hit some huge milestones for downloads. So it's all thanks to all of you listeners. Thank you so much. And of course, my amazing, wonderful, talented, insightful, inspiring guests like Liz, that are bringing just so many wonderful listeners to a new level. So thanks, Liz, and thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Lots of love.